Good evening. A former soldier whose own mother said he lived in a fantasy world was jailed for 14 years today after spying for Iran and escaping jail. Daniel Khalif sparked a nationwide manhunt after going on the run from Wandsworth Prison. Today, a judge described the 23-year-old as a dangerous fool with a selfish desire to show off. Even Khalif's own lawyer said the amateur spy's plot was hapless, with more in common with Scooby-Doo than James Bond. From court, here's our correspondent Simon Harris.
Most self-respecting spies try to keep a low profile, but when Daniel Khalif travelled to Istanbul to meet his Iranian handlers, he filmed himself on his phone. But then even his own lawyer described his hapless tradecraft as more Scooby-Doo than 007. And today, Khalif's inflated opinion of himself was punctured by a judge who sentenced him to 14 years in jail.
The mere fact that you started on this dangerous and fantastical plan demonstrates your immaturity and lack of wisdom. That you thought it was appropriate to insert yourself, an unauthorised, unqualified and uninformed junior soldier, into communication with an enemy state is perhaps the clearest indication of the degree of folly in your failure to understand at the most obvious level the risk you posed.
Khalif's spying began when he was a 17-year-old new recruit to the Royal Signals, the Army's battlefield communications experts. He had ambitions of being in military intelligence, but was rebuffed by a senior officer who said his Iranian ancestry would be a problem. So he offered his services to Tehran, photographing sensitive equipment and compiling a list of soldiers in the special forces. But when Khalif called MI5 volunteering to be a double agent for Britain, he was arrested and charged with spying and terrorism offences. It was while he was on remand in Wandsworth Prison, working in the kitchen, he broke out by clinging to the underneath of a delivery van. He was on the run for 3 days, sparking a huge manhunt. The police overtime bill alone came to £250,000. Khalif was finally caught on a canal towpath in West London. At Woolwich Crown Court today, his past caught up with him as the judge outlined his crimes and announced his punishment. For most of the judge's remarks, Khalif sat in the dock expressionless. But when she said he had a narcissistic and antisocial personality disorder, he was untrustworthy and unreliable and an attention seeker, he began to rub his eyes.
Stand up, Daniel Khalif. When you joined the army as a young man, you had the makings of an exemplary soldier. However, through the repeated violation of your oath of service, you showed yourself to be instead a dangerous fool.
Tonight, Khalif is understood to be in Belmarsh. It's London's maximum security prison and said to be the country's toughest. Simon Harris, ITV News, Woolwich.
Good evening. Think bold and think big. That was the Mayor's message today to his new so-called nightlife task force. A team of 11 experts have been brought together to look at the challenges facing London's nightlife and to work out what can be done to boost the industry. More than 1,500 pubs, bars and clubs in the capital closed in the 3 years following the pandemic. City Hall say, as well as COVID, rising rents, rising business rates, staffing shortages and planning issues are to blame. The task force will have 6 months to make their recommendations, but for venues already struggling, is it too little, too late? Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Monday night in the West End and the Starman is depressingly quiet. It's never the busiest night of the week, but this pub just off Regent Street has spotted a worrying trend. Fewer punters are coming through the doors. In January, managers were forced to cut the opening hours.
There isn't such young crowds anymore. You don't really see anyone maybe under 25 coming to the pub anymore.
London has lost more than 1,600 bars, clubs and restaurants since March 2020. The latest pub to close its doors is the famous Swiss Cottage, a landmark in North London for more than a century. According to City Hall, London's hospitality trade faces multiple challenges. Changing drinking habits post-pandemic, spiralling rents and business rates, staff shortages and the cost of living crisis are all having an impact. In 2016, Sadiq Khan hired the comedian Amy LeMay as his so-called night czar, but political opponents questioned whether she was effective or value for money, and in October she quit her £130,000 a year job. Today, the Mayor was at Fabric to launch his latest idea, a task force instead of a night tsar. But first, he experienced the club's unique dance area, where low frequencies are transmitted through the floor.
We're going to make sure that we encourage the task force to think bold, think big, let them come back with recommendations.
Why is a task force better than a night tsar?
One of the recommendations the task force may make is London needs a night tsar or a commissioner going forward.
So you might bring it back?
I don't want to write the recommendations from the task force will be coming up with.
The new panel of advisors is made up of 11 people with a background in London's nighttime economy, whether it's running bars or venues or promoting music.
What will success look like?
Success initially will look like us all joining together and actually making something that is cohesive.
If we can see real stability in the businesses that are there and growth with new venues opening, then I think that would be considered success.
Reversing the tide might not be easy.
I personally don't really go out that much anymore. I used to go out quite a lot. I don't know if it's with age or too expensive.
If I socialise now, I kind of go for coffee or a walk. I wouldn't really lean towards going for like a bar, I think.
I just feel like I'm getting old and therefore I don't go out, but then when I do go out, it's like, where is everyone?
The Mayor has given his task force 6 months to come up with ideas to revive the nighttime economy. But first it must identify why, for some, a night out in London has lost its magic. Simon Harris, ITV News in the West End.
But first, a brand new dance theatre opened in East London today, marking the latest development created through the legacy of the 2012 Olympic Games. Sadler's Wells East is a purpose-built theatre within the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. It features an auditorium as well as a creative studio space to provide culture and education to local schools and the wider community. Opening it today, the Mayor hailed it as a new milestone for the East Bank of the Stratford site. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports on the grand opening.
When Boris Johnson was Mayor, he christened it Olympicopolis. His successor, Sadiq Khan, renamed it the East Bank. Now this £700 million taxpayer-funded cultural district in London's Olympic Park has passed a milestone. The first venue, Sadler's Wells East, has opened its doors.
So we're in Sadler's Wells East, and this is the theatre.
In the auditorium, Artistic Director Sir Alistair Spalding explained the new theatre with 500 retractable seats is a smaller sister to the existing Sadler's Wells in Islington.
It's a chance for lots of companies outside of London to come and perform. There isn't a space like this. But it'll have the same mix of styles as Sadler's Wells. It'll be exactly the same, hip-hop, ballet, contemporary, flamenco. We have that at Sadler's Wells. We'll have exactly the same mix here.
As well as the theatre, there are 6 studios and a community dance floor open to anyone. In September, Britain's first hip-hop school will open. Sir Alistair and Britannia Morton are the 2 chief executives who've been working on the project for more than a decade.
When we were looking for somewhere to build a theatre, we needed some space, and there was space here, but we also were really attracted by being part of the regeneration of this part of town. It's one of the most deprived areas in the country, and we wanted to be part of the Olympic legacy and the regeneration that was going on here.
Alongside Sadler's Wells, the East Bank also includes the London College of Fashion, a store for the Victoria and Albert Museum and a BBC studio.
It's coming up to 20 years since London was chosen to host the 2012 Olympics on the back of a promise to regenerate this part of East London. Today, it's hard to visualise how it was then.
The area was known as the Lower Lee Valley, an urban wasteland of derelict buildings, polluted waterways and scrapyards. The site of the new theatre was referred to locally as Fridge Mountain. The old appliances were piled high. The Olympic venues were an early part of the transformation, along with the Westfield Shopping Centre. But there's more to come.
We've still got 4 neighbourhoods to build in terms of communities that will live on the park. We've still got quite large pieces of commercial space that we will be using, and we want to invest in that. But we want to make it relevant. We want to make sure that it's in line with the new jobs for the future, for our young people.
This evening, Sir Sadiq Khan formally opens Sadler's Wells East ahead of the first show. The starting gun was sport, but now it's culture, which is putting London's Olympic Park on the map. Simon Harris, ITV News, Stratford.